You put in the work. Every angle is measured, every component polished, and every piece slides into its designated slot. Yet it refuses to move. This was the reality facing a clockmaker named Leo. He had poured his skill into a new brass masterpiece, a complex watch that sat entirely lifeless on his workbench. The failure contradicts the engineering. The gear ratios are mathematically aligned, the spring tensions are calibrated for rotational force. By every law of physics, this machine should run. When the math is right, failure feels personal. The silent gears were a source of constant frustration. Exhausting his own expertise, he finally picked up the dead instrument. He carried it out of his workshop to seek out a master clockmaker, certain there was a microscopic flaw he had missed. He reached the edge of what his tools could fix. The workshop fell silent, leaving Leo with a piece of perfect machinery that simply wouldn't breathe. "It refuses to tick," Leo whispered, placing the watch on the counter. The old master picked it up and examined the brass casing. But instead of reaching for a magnifying loupe or a wrench, he simply smiled, revealing a row of silver teeth. He handed it back. "It is not jammed, boy," the master said. "It is waiting." Tapping the glass face, the old man pointed out a contradiction. Leo had built an instrument to measure time, but he was crowding the mechanics with his own impatience. Leo looked at the watch. He had spent days adjusting, tightening, and forcing the crown. The master's words suggested that the very act of trying to make it happen was what kept the watch still. Leo left the shop, confused. The nervous tension that had fueled his morning was gone, replaced by a heavy exhaustion. His route home carried him along the banks of the Hooghly River. Past the stone steps where bathers gathered and the wooden boats bobbing in the current, the city moved around him while the watch remained frozen in his pocket. Arriving back at his workshop, he made a choice. He took the watch and placed it down on his dusty oak table. He set his tools aside. He finally closed his eyes, letting go of the worry that had consumed his week, and drifted into sleep. Stepping away felt like defeat, but it was the only option left. By walking away, Leo was finally leaving the watch alone. The heavy dark of the night eventually broke. Morning sunshine flooded into the workshop, casting long, warm shadows across the floor. And then came a new sound, a rhythmic tock-tock-tock cutting through the quiet air. The watch sat in a beam of sunlight, ticking steadily. It didn't need Leo to wind it, or a master to diagnose it. After a week of being forced, it was now moving on its own. Leo realized the object had never required a mechanical fix. It just needed him to trust that the pieces he had built would eventually find their rhythm. We often have projects that feel stalled. We try to force them into motion with more hours and more revisions, rarely considering that our constant interference is the very thing creating the friction. Mastery requires the discipline to assemble the pieces, but it also requires the restraint to step back and let the work find its own time to begin.